what you doing? I might have to go Thursday morning. Do a handover?
Yes. Yesterday I could barely walk because my hamstring was so tight as a freaking today I couldn't. It's fine. I have it on rain all day because I've got doctors calling. Hi, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. She's actually using it at school.
Yeah, good number.
Sorry.
5.3. How you doing? How's Ballet going?
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
Take them up. It's only one person, right? Yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. 5.3. Yes, briefly, very briefly.
Good, Freddie. Terrific.
I wanted permission to the appointment. 5.3. It's a quick one.
He's gonna be a great addition.
5.3. Good. Oh, he doesn't want to take his report out. All right. Oh, he'll just say it. Good. Okay. That's good. That's good to know.
All right.
I'll keep that in mind. How much the report?
They donate.
Said, 5.3 is
It's 7.1?
yeah, 7.1.
Okay,
That's good.
okay. Everybody please rise. Dear God, today as the session opens, we pray that your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in this decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make a decision which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessings on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. We'll now say the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty, justice for all. Thank you. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Counsel Noon.
Here.
Mayor Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Cirillo.
Here.
Counsel Conway.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Here.
Counsel Kennedy.
Here.
Counsel Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercia.
Here.
Counsel Milonazo.
Here.
That's 9 present.
Counsel
Mayor?
Kennedy.
If there's no objection, could we take item 7.1 out of order?
Oh, I'm sorry, we have memorials.
Oh, I'm sorry,
I
okay.
apologize for that. Counsel Leahy,
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Nope. I'd just like to offer a moment of silence for Donald J. McQueen. Donald J. McQueen, 80, a resident of the Highlands section of Lowell, passed away peacefully Friday morning, March 22nd at Lowell General Hospital. He was the beloved husband for 58 years of Mary Ann Crowfill McQueen, who survives him. Born in Lowell, Massachusetts, February 9, 1939, the son of the late Donald and the late Viola Pawlowski McQueen Hoge. He attended St. Peter's Grammar School and Keith Academy, class of 1956. Besides his wife, Mary Ann, Don is survived by his 2 daughters, Mary Lou McKenzie and her husband David of Lowell, and Kathleen Sullivan and her husband Timothy of Lowell. 3 grandchildren, Caitlin McKenzie, Brian McKenzie, and Liam Sullivan. A sister, Elaine Drysdale of Charlottesville, Virginia. 2 sister-in-laws, Judith Frangiello and her husband Richard, and Martha De Solana of Chelmsford, and a niece and several nephews. He'll be sorely missed. Thank you.
Thank you. Will please darken the chambers. Thank you. Counsel Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If there's no objection, I'd like to request that we take item 7.1 out of order this evening.
Second.
Second it.
Second by Mr. Noon. Counsel Noon. Go ahead.
So item 7.1, just so that everybody understands, is a report of the subcommittee for economic development. The subcommittee did not complete its agenda this evening, and we'll be meeting another time. However, one of the items that was before us was an update on the city lights and waterways, and we've got Mr. Faust and Mr. Lenahan here, along with Chris, who would like to give a presentation, if that would be appropriate.
I think it's very worthwhile. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Faust.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Fred Faust, 52 Lawrence Drive, Lowell, Massachusetts. Madam Manager, members of the City Council. First of all, I'd like to just say thank you for the opportunity to present to the Economic Development Subcommittee. The entire council has been tremendously supportive of this project, and it's something that's been very worthwhile for us spending our time and seeing the results of the last 3-4 years of effort. And my partner here in terms of Greater Lowell Community Foundation, particularly in the Cox Bridge lighting, is Jay Lenahan from Greater Lowell Community Foundation. Greater Lowell Community Foundation has been a fantastic partner as well, and this whole effort is about partnership. So we've made good progress in the last year. One of those measures of progress is being able to hire a part-time project director. So I'd like to introduce Chris Hayes, who also works for the city, to talk a little bit about progress to date and ongoing projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you, Council. So I work as project director for Lowell Waterways through a grant from the Parker Foundation and with Greater Lowell Community Foundation as a fiscal agent, so you can see the partnerships in action there. And what we talked about at the Economic Development Subcommittee is both what we have done since we developed with the community and with the city the Lowell Waterways Vitality Action Plan in 2017, and what we want to do moving forward in 2019, and how we're looking towards more partnerships to help us achieve that. And since the action plan was enacted, we have a lot of great successes under our belt that's really made us excited. That includes lighting the Central Firehouse Bell Tower and the New England Quilt Museum with the help of a private donor. And we see that those two elements can be kind of a pilot for a larger downtown lighting district where we give some mini grants, challenge grants to private landowners who might want to put some money toward putting lighting up on their own architecturally significant buildings with the goal of extending the economic day in Lowell. We also had the Light Up the Locks Swamp Locks in coordination with First Thursdays made in Lowell, the Greater Lowell, Merrimack Valley Convention and Visitor Bureau and the city. And we had hundreds of people, more than 300 people, coming to the Swamp Locks to see a lighting demonstration. And we learned that these type of demonstrations, these unveilings, can have a real wow factor that brings a lot of people in. But we also saw a challenge that we're working to address. How do we keep getting those people to come back, shop at businesses, and really not just the economic development, but also the quality of life for people that live here? We also participated in Points of Light Lantern Celebration with DIY Lowell, Coalition for a Better Acre, Lowell Housing Authority, and many, many others. Had more than 1,000 people, and the next Points of Light will be 2019, May 4th. And we found the power of going into the neighborhoods and drawing on Lowell's cultural heritage for these projects. We were recognized on a statewide level with a Mass Inc. Award in late 2017 and also accepted to speak at the Worldwide Canal Conference, which was really exciting. We did the Light Up Lowell Cox Bridge project, which, as you know, has been going on and lighting up the Cox Bridge for the last almost a year now, and does special programs in the holidays, changes with the seasons. And that was the goal there, was to really symbolically and literally bridge the neighborhoods, Centerville and downtown, at no cost to the city. And we were really excited to see the city and the community raise $55,000 for Kerouac Park, and we want to help program that area in partnership with the city and the nonprofits and the other partners, along with Blue Star Park, which is right across the bridge in Centerville. We also have a Western Canal Steward program. We restored some art in partnership with private entities in Lowell National Historical Park, and we had about 50 people at a visioning session at the end of 2018, the end of last year, November 2018, and really got some great input on how we can work on 2019. So what's next in 2019? That's the other element that we discussed. We'll be lighting another bridge across the Merrimack River. At least we are investigating that right now, doing a study on that with a private donor. We are looking to be a partner in programming, not just Kerouac Park, but all the waterside areas, including $5,000 for art and performing art from both professional and young artists in waterside areas. And we have a working group for that. We have, as I mentioned before, the downtown lighting district that we want to work with the city on in order to give these grants to interested parties. And then finally, probably the largest thing that's on the horizon, but a longer term, is looking at lower locks. And we spent a lot of time talking about how we believe lower locks is a great potential economic development engine. There's a lot of economic development opportunities in terms of developers looking to move on projects in the near term, right adjacent to that. But Lower Locks itself is in very critical condition. The lock chambers no longer work, meaning canal boats can't go up and down to Merrimack River level. The walls are having soil kind of come out of them, creating sinkholes in the plaza. There's a valve that has essentially is tied to a concrete block right now as a temporary fix, but eventually it will fall over without several $1 million of repairs is what we're looking at. So what we want to do there is lead a community conversation, or rather participate in a community conversation with all the partners, including stakeholders like UMass Lowell and Middlesex Community College and Enel Green Power, the public at large, City of Lowell, Lowell National Historical Park, all those partners coming together to you develop a vision, get some cost estimates for both how to fix those things and transform Lower Locks Plaza into a place that could really be a meeting place. And then B, after that, identify the funding that is needed for that. And the only other thing I'd like to mention while I have this platform is we really are looking for community partners, community interests. So we have a website, lowellwaterways.com, how people can be involved.
Thank you. I want to thank you for the hard work that's been done on this project. Councilor Kennedy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think, as I said, the subcommittee did not complete its agenda, but I think this part is something that, that the city lights project in Lowell, in the Lowell Locks Canal is something that everybody gets excited about. I was there the night that the swamp blocks were lit up, and people were really pumped up about it.
Correct.
And I was also there, as many of us were, when the Bridge Street Bridge, or the Cox Bridge, was lit as well. And the same thing happened. And for that matter, the same thing over at Lucy Lockham Park with the Merrimack Canal. So I think that this is something that, this whole lights project is something that really excites people. And I think it really shows the city in a very good light, and it's something that's important for the future of the city, and something that sets, one of the things that helps set Lowell apart from other mid-sized cities throughout New England. And so I think it's really important that we continue with this, and I think that the presentation that they gave was very good. And along with Chris, I think the city is very lucky to have Fred Faust and Jay Lenahan and Paul Marion, who also has been involved in the past working on this, because they've really put a lot of time and effort into this project, and I think it's slowly starting to pay off, and will as we start to light up more and more areas and waterways in the city. Thank you.
Garcia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that we don't have the luxury of Newburyport, where they're surrounded by an ocean, but we have to look around the city and see what we can improvise on and see what we have that we can nurture it. And I see that we have a gem right here in our rivers and our canals. And if that means adding lights like we saw at Swamp Locks, and I was there as well, that was magnificent. And then the Cox Bridge, when you're coming down the VFW highway and you look to the right and see the beautiful lights, it's just so soothing. And then you have the Lucy Lockham Canal going by. That's what I'm talking about, and that does get me excited, because it says, let there be light, and that's what we're doing in the city of Lowell. And everybody that is involved in this project, I'm so grateful for that. And I thank those sponsors and donors and anonymous people like Nancy Donahue, but we won't even say her name, to do what she does to make this city light up and shine. I'm so very proud of everybody that is making me so happy to see this as I go by. So keep up the good work, and I'll donate something. I can't make it thousands and thousands, but I'll do my share, because I believe this. I believe what's happening here. I think people are going to come into the city just to see it, like they go to Rhode Island. Like, I want them to come here and say, well, while we're here, let's go and shop, or let's go and eat at a restaurant. So great job. Thank you.
You're correct, Councilor Mercia. But Councilor Milonazo brought up in the subcommittee meeting. Do you want to just describe? No, okay, but the thing is, what had happened many years ago. Go ahead.
What I said at the subcommittee meeting was like deja vu all over again, how we had all traveled to San Antonio to look at the Riverwalk there, and how by lighting up the Riverwalk in San Antonio, they were able to generate a lot of economic development, which is really what Councilor Mercia is talking about as well, by having something that would attract people to the downtown area, especially as you start looking at Lower Lock and how we're going to connect that to the Hamilton Canal Industrial District. It really is about economic development. It's about bringing pride back into the city of Lowell. So, again, I commend Fred and Jay and Chris for getting involved, and Paul Marion for really keeping this a priority for the city and all the partners involved.
Well, thank you. I don't think people realize how many hours you gentlemen have put into this, but I want to thank you for everything. Thank you very much. Okay. Next, we have 5.3. Can we take that out of order? We have a vote on the Disabilities Commission. I'd like a motion to,
Yes.
Council Mercia,
Yeah.
Council Elliott. 5.3 is communication, appoint Sebastian Nash to Disabilities Commission. Need a motion to adopt, and second, Council Elliott, second by Council Mercia. Roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Would Mr. Nash like to come up? and say? Council Elliott?
Yeah, no, I know we have members of the Disability Commission here. I'd like to invite you up if you want to say a few words.
I would like to thank our wonderful councilmen and women for giving me this opportunity. I'd like to thank the mayor for, and the city manager for giving this a pass, and I'd like to thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Congratulations, thank you.
Hello, Councilman and Councilwoman. This is Sheila Haggerty, the chair of the Lowell Disability Commission. I just want to say I'm thrilled to have Sebastian here as part of our team. I think he's going to be a great asset to the commission and to the city of Lowell.
Thank you for the commission being here. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right, next we will go to City Clerk minutes of the Park and Recreation Subcommittee, March 19th, City Council meeting of March 19th. I need a motion to accept and place on file.
So moved.
By Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Milonazo. Next, 2.2, vote cancel council meeting of April 16th. Waive the full reading, second reading by title. To cancel council meeting of April 16, 2019. I need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Milonazo. Roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Councilor Noon?
Mr. Mayor, order business 3.1. Communication motion respond, Mayor Samaras, January 15, 2019. Request city auditor provide a written explanation and report for non-compliant issue found during the recent school department audit as pertaining to the city rule, regulation, and ordinance. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to take this opportunity to thank the city auditor for really doing yeoman's work on this project. I mean, you've addressed many of the issues that I raised and many of the issues that are a concern of the school department. The one thing we want to do is make sure that when we're going to go ahead and that we will do things in such a way where we won't be faced with the problems that we've had in the past. Just a couple of things so the people that are watching, you know, this council meeting. The first one is about student activities, and student activities account doesn't really come under your purview, correct?
Sorry, through you, Vice Mayor. Mr. Vice
Go
Mayor.
ahead, Mr. Auditor.
Yeah, no, the student activities, the way that was established by state law about 20 some odd years ago, is it was basically placed under the school administration's authority to give them some sort of flexibility in using that as a custodial account on behalf of the students themselves.
But we've had some problems with it. I mean, there was recently, you know, some theft of the account and what have you. What recommendations have you made? Can you?
Thank you. Yeah, yes, there's been issues of improprieties that have been in the news. It wasn't fully, I guess, fully vetted through this report based on timing, as a large part beyond a investigation outside of the school department. But that did raise a bunch of issues that need to be addressed as far as controls and oversight of the student activities audit, of the student activities account. I guess for starters, there's guidelines placed by, excuse me, by DESE that need to be followed. The first one is that they had been, it seemed like after it was audited, I guess take a step back, it was audited last year by Powers and Sullivan, the Student Activities Funds. And then after it was audited last June, it was presented to the school committee and then referred to the Policy and Finance Subcommittee to essentially begin the process of developing a policy where they can coordinate with the best practices from DESI and come up with their own policy as far as check authority, oversight, basically ensuring that the reconciliation's done on the bank statements, or the accounts are audited every year. So that was about a year ago almost, a year ago this spring or summer. It had been referred there, and there's been apparently no progress to this point. So they need to establish some sort of policy and then follow through on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. All right, there's another couple of questions. The issue of bad bills, I mean, that's something that has happened in the, you know, it just happens, but you showed where the bad bills that were created by the school department, you did stop. What policies do we have to make sure that we do to follow these?
Yeah, I guess on the back end, the backstop is, as we've discussed in here before, is that there's the purchase order system that's in place, not just as a state requirement, but it's also a city policy here. That before an item's purchased or goods are delivered, there's got to be a requisition that's converted into a purchase order to show the fixed amount that they intend to use for that product or service, so it's reserved under the books. That purchase order then allows them to order the good or service and then begin procurement, receiving the goods, and then be invoiced and then pay for it.
We know what we have to do, correct? We just have to do it.
Correct. It's in place, so all departments are made aware of it, and there are time to time where it happens, and we always work on trying to make sure it doesn't happen, they follow the rules. And I think one of the things that has to happen going forward is some sort of separation of duties between those who are creating the requisition or purchase order to those who are ordering the good, as opposed to those who are signing off on the invoice to then justify the invoice was received after the goods or services had been properly procured.
Okay. One of the issues that was very costly to us was the excessive use of the indirect costs over the food services, okay? I mean, but the thing is, if you don't know what DESI has as a regulation, how do you follow it? So can you just basically explain how we can best handle this in the future?
Yeah, going forward, my recommendation as far as any, I guess to start off with the indirect rate is I'd need to be in the loop as far as what the current and active indirect rate is set by DESI for the Lowell Public School System, so I can always essentially keep that on file. Going forward, when they need to justify any transfer utilizing the lunch fund, the milk and lunch fund for any indirects, is I want to make sure that I have a copy to make sure we're staying within the parameters of what's allowed under the indirects. I want to make sure that it's explicitly approved by the school committee, as opposed to how in the past it had been commented that it had been placed basically on in their budget book as line items or even sub-footnotes to identify what they intended to use for their indirect rate. And I think we need to have better visibility and explicit documentation approved by the school committee to authorize that transfer. And then I would expect all the supporting documents for the duties, the work, the hours supported within that transfer as well.
So basically, that would apply to almost anything that DESI has regulations on. And if DESI were to change those regulations, your office should be updated.
Yeah, as far as any indirect authorization through DESI, I would require support now going forward, just because we need to increase the scrutiny on these activities.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, you can go on and on, but for time, I'll just a couple of more questions. The revolving fund, there was much talk about the revolving fund, and basically you said that it was an interesting statement, what was most likely a strategic decision made by the school administration. But we have these revolving funds that over the years have carried $2.5 million, $3 million in each account. And you talk about how in one account it ended up with 89 cents at the year's end. Is that a good business practice?
I guess
I
the
mean,
answer
it's
to your last,
doing the
yeah.
right thing, but at the same time, good business practice versus.
I think the best practice of being able to utilize these funds that you can carry over year to year is the best practice is to at least leave something in there so you can use it in case of emergency or keep something in there for unforeseen expenditures in future years. I think that's a prudent business practice.
I think, that's part of our issue. There is regulations that allow you to do certain things, but good business practices would dictate other ways. Okay, one of the concerns was overpayment of salaries and benefits. So we had some teachers who left the school system and were receiving salaries, and some who were on leave receiving salaries. How in the future can we make sure that this doesn't happen?
On that, there had been an issue, I guess as the school year started, that they hadn't been authorized, hadn't been communicated thoroughly between the school department, between HR, and payroll, that a few teachers or employees had not returned to the school system for the following year, and they had left them on the payroll. The biggest thing is they got to, on a low level, obviously, they have to communicate and checks and balances to make sure who's on there and who shouldn't be on there. But it goes to the difficult task of essentially taking attendance of the teachers and staff who's on hand. It's difficult when you're managing off-site, especially with multiple venues.
Yeah. So basically, you're not offering anything new. What you're offering is, we have it on the books, we know what we have to do, we just have to do it.
Correct.
Okay. Finally, I guess, on budget oversight, it was interesting. I mean, you talk about budget oversight, but how do you feel that you could help the school department at this particular point? What's some of the best ways?
I think one of the best things to do is just essentially be a little more proactive between my office and the school administration with the assistant superintendent of finance, I believe that's the title, is just to kind of get on the same page before issues come up, so we know what's expected of each side, to make sure the documentation's in line and there's no issues. A lot of times, it's almost, we communicate as the issue's coming up, and that can cause some frustration from both sides, to make sure all the checks are done, or all the documentation's lined up. And if we can, we do meet regularly. We do talk almost on a daily basis through email or through phone. We meet through the monthly finance department that encompasses other departments as well, MIS, purchasing, treasury, assessors, et cetera. But if I can meet regularly with the school administration as well, and they can meet with my staff to kind of get each other on the same page with upcoming calendar events, for lack of a better term. We got the year end will be coming up very soon, and we need to make sure that we're on the same page for the timing on summer payrolls, for sick leave buyback, et cetera. And there's a lot of work that goes into it, and there's a lot of oversight that needs to be done to make sure everything's teed up properly so it runs smoothly.
No, I want to thank you for your willingness to do that. I mean, the issue is, we've had some problems in the past. My concern is the future, okay? And my concern is that whatever information that the Lowell School Department has, when we turn it over to you and the CFO for the city, that it's correct and we're able to deal with, issues. And so I want to thank you for the report. I feel that this probably will go to the subcommittee on finance for more in-depth look. But the thing is, thank you for the work that you did.
Is there a motion, Mr. Mayor?
I'd like,
Refer this to the finance subcommittee?
yeah.
Or
Motion.
Councilor Malnazzo, and is it second by Mayor Samaras to refer this report to the finance subcommittee so that we can vet it out even more? And Councilor Conway have a question, or just raise his hand?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. And I thank you for that report too. It was very inclusive. In regards to the payroll issues, I certainly can appreciate that. I was involved with the school department for over 38 years, and I'll be quite frank with you, in 38 years, they still haven't fixed it because there were problems ever since I can remember. People not being on the right step, people being either overpaid or underpaid. I know it happened to myself a couple times. So whatever process that is being used, I think that they need to streamline it. They need to make it more effective, because once again, this particular situation is not new. We've heard it year after year after year. So I can certainly appreciate that. The other thing too, which I'm glad that has been brought out, and we talked about it last week, to make sure that we don't run into these problems with the bills and the finances, that, and I believe Councilor Elliott brought up a motion last week that kind of spurred quite a bit of discussion in regards to this. The fact is that with the city manager and Connor Baldwin meeting periodically with the school department, with the business manager in the school department and the superintendent, I think that's going to make things a lot more effective, because I do believe the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing. And this way here, that having better communications, I think, is going to take care and clear up a lot of these issues and problems. So we won't have them going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with Councilor Conway with regard to a comprehensive report. Thank you, Mr. Auditor. I think a lot of these questions posed by Mr. Mayor has a lot to do. A lot of this issue has a lot to do with, due in part of the lack of communication. If there's one, maybe not open communication. I think last week, Councilor Elliott, getting somewhere there in terms of asking the managers to evaluate the possibility of HR, school and the city and CFO and the business manager, somewhat possibility of do something, maybe, I'm not going to say, I didn't say it, purge or consolidate or something. I didn't say it, but somewhere there. That way you really know what Councilor Conway alluded to, that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand's doing. And this sounds like what happened and has been happening year after year after year and need to stop. So thank you for the report again.
Yeah. This report, though, was based on a particular time, place. All right, we're going to go into, we have to go to general, yes, sorry, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was referred to, I don't mind if it goes to finance or audit oversight, one of the two, or maybe, I think Councilman Laza meant maybe a joint meeting. But I think this is a lengthy report with, I think, good information. There's 116 pages with emails. And what concerns me, Mr. Auditor, and maybe the report from the manager next week might indicate an opportunity to communicate, because throughout both the forensic, your analysis, and even the audit that is conducted by the school department, they have their own audit. And there's many of these items have been highlighted. They've been flagged. But my concern, when there is a lack of communication and internal controls are in place, but they weren't followed, how do we bridge that gap? How do we put internal controls in place? We put policies, we put procedures, we put checks. It's, whether it's manual or computer, and then when there's human error or someone isn't following up, that's where the breakdown is. The student activity, there were procedures agreed upon by Powers and Sullivan that were presented to the school committee. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm just trying to suggest, what is it that we can do more to ensure, the payroll issue is troubling. When somebody leaves and the supervisors, department heads are approving those timesheets, in order for them to get paid, somebody has to press the button to say it's okay. How did that occur? And what are we going to do in the future to make sure it doesn't? Where is the check to say, HR, communicate with the auditor's office to let you know that people have left the system? Because how many employees? We're talking 2,500 employees. People come and go, and that's troubling that people will remain on the payroll and still get paid. The other issue is people buying things without a PO. In this day and age, a purchase order, I don't understand how that takes place. So this is a longer discussion with participation with the school committee to ensure it doesn't take place. But what happens to the findings? There was a separate audit just for the school department in itself. So I know I asked a lot of questions here, but first the payroll, the audit, and moving forward.
All right, so I guess just first on the payroll is that my office has to rely on what's been presented to us by those who are in charge over there. I mean, we can't have the controls in place beyond essentially trusting them. And I think that's going to be a key theme too, is you have to trust, sorry.
So this is a human resources on the school side versus the city side. If there was some overlap, isn't that where the measure has to be implemented, that HR is telling our HR, guess what, these people left? Otherwise, you're just processing the payroll.
Yeah, I think the issue had been that HR hadn't been communicating it to the school's payroll, that those people weren't there. I think that's the biggest thing. I don't know how much our HR department would play a part in it, but we certainly would be notified, and everyone's aware during the summer as it leads up to the school year, is that there's going to be turnover, there's going to be new employees, and it's again, something that we have to rely on from what we're told through HR on the school side. Sorry, next question as far as the audit from Powers and Sullivan on the school side or from just the student activities. Again, there's some degree, if we can continue to put I agree that there does need to be further internal controls in place, but it's got to get to the point where it raises the flag to let other responsible or responsive departments, people to some degree, know that these aren't getting done. It's at some point it becomes a personnel issue, that people are put in place to do the job, and if it's not getting done, there has to be oversight to ensure that it makes sure it gets done.
I mean, let's be clear. You did send numerous emails. We're going back to 2017 to Mr. Friss and Mr. Cassidy saying, what's going on? Where's the audit? Who are you selecting? And it's just, the left didn't know what the right was doing. How do we prevent that? Okay.
Like again, that goes to
This has been referred, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, this has been referred to the subcommittee, so I will ask those questions at great depth, in great depth at that point. Thank you.
We all said we have a hearing to get into. Okay. Thank you. Next, we have the general public hearing. Ordinance to delete 2 PT and create 1 FT clinical recovery specialist in the Health and Human Services Department. Open the hearing. If anybody wants to speak in favor? Anyone?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Lainey Iman. I'm the Substance Abuse Coordinator from the Health Department. I manage the Substance Abuse and Prevention Division and have direct oversight of the Lowell Co-op. I'm here tonight to speak in favor of eliminating the 2 part-time clinical recovery specialist positions in order to create 1 full-time clinical recovery specialist position. Although this position falls under the Lowell Health Department, this position is an active member of our Lowell Co-op. The Lowell Co-op has been without this clinical position for several months now. It's been difficult to find candidates that not only meet the requirements that we're looking for and the qualifications that we're looking for, but are also able to work part-time during the day, which is the same schedule as our co-op. The clinical skill set that this position brings to Lowell Co-op is absolutely vital, and we want to ensure that we hire the best qualified candidate. Eliminating the 2 part-time clinical recovery specialist positions to create 1 full-time position will in no way impact city funds, as this position will remain grant-funded through the Lowell Police Department's Smart Policing Initiative grant. We believe that creating 1 full-time position will allow for us to broaden our applicant pool and therefore best serve the Lowell Co-op and the city's opioid overdose survivor population. Thank you.
Anyone else in favor? In favor? That hearing is closed. Anyone in opposition? In opposition? In opposition? That portion is closed. Discussion? Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a little bit biased with this because I see this every day, and I know that they're lacking this very important position. And if you stop and think what Lainey just said, they're eliminating 2 part-time positions, creating 1 full-time. The money isn't coming per se out of the city, it's coming through a grant. I make a motion to move approval.
Okay. And second by?
Second.
By Councilor Cirillo. Roll call.
Council No.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway. Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes. Next, we have communication from the city manager. Motion responses. First motion response, Maxfield Bench and Shed Park. This was by Councilor Mercia.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm delighted to know and see the report that they will be putting a bench and a plaque together. Thank you very much, Madam Manager. Please let us know of the date of the dedication, which would be in mid to late May. That's very important So I'm very happy. Thank you so much. I'm sure the family sends their thanks as well.
And we will, once they've settled on a date, we'll let the
Sure.
council and everybody know.
Thank you.
Okay. The next motion response is downtown economic development. Councilor Leahy?
Sure, thank you for the report, and I'm having trouble with my thing here. So, no, I appreciate it. There's a lot of good information in here. I actually did want to just kind of go over it again and then probably sit down with a couple of people in the department and go over it. But a lot of good information here. I appreciate the report. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, thank you. Next is motion for the response four-way stop, Monadnock and Rayner. Councilor Leahy?
Yep, thank you. Through you, the manager, I wish, so traffic engineer isn't here tonight. But
Yep, she is. She's just sitting in a different section. She was
Throw
hoping you
me
didn't
off.
notice.
Yeah,
That section was full.
thank you. So I read the report. What do we do in a situation where neighborhoods have concerns then with traffic? I saw the report about the traffic calming, so is this something you want someone from the neighborhood to get a petition and come down and talk to you about it? Or?
Yeah, a petition would be good. They can call me, they can submit an online form. I think that there are a number of places in the city where traffic calming is appropriate. And yeah, I mean, basically, that's probably the three best ways. Calling is probably the least effective. The best way is a petition or the online form where they can select to send an email to me, and they can just kind of explain the problem. Usually what I do is then do a site investigation and then contact the person and try and figure out what can be done.
Okay. Was it noticeable to you that the other four-way stop signs are pushing the traffic onto that road?
I think that, yeah, I think that what's happening is you have the stoplight on the next street over and the four-way stop on the next one over, so traffic is more likely to use Monadnock as opposed to, I can't remember, the next one over. But one of the problems with putting a four-way stop in when it's not technically required according to MUTCD guidelines is that people will start rolling through the stop signs, or they'll like accelerate to get to the stop sign, stop, and then accelerate through to get to the next stop sign, which creates sort of the same problem. When I was out there, I did see a number of cars, but I was there in the middle of the afternoon, so it wasn't like during a peak where there might have been more traffic. I do think it's a really pretty neighborhood. It seems like a pretty treatment. Like, I think one of those mini roundabouts would actually look really great there, and it would really slow traffic. But
What are we talking for money for something like that?
well, we could do a pop-up one very inexpensively. So a pop-up one is just paint and flexible posts, and in that case, if a fire truck had to go down it, they could just kind of go right through it. It would, if it were to be installed and then the, like a 60-day trial or something like that, and the neighborhood felt like it made a significant difference, we would probably be looking at mountable curb and, tearing up the asphalt and putting in some planting material so that it could be planted with something pretty that's not very tall.
Sure.
So maybe $5,000 to $10,000 or something like that. So not cheap, but not unaffordable.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll have them get in touch with your office then and take it from there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Natasha. Let me say that you can put up all the signs you want. People see the sign as if they whiz right by it. It doesn't mean a thing, in my personal opinion. Slow down, children. People don't even see it. But when you made this statement here in this report that says curb extensions with planting of trees narrows a lane, narrowing of a lane causes traffic to slow down. That's the truest thing that can happen.
Yep.
I say that because when you go to Broadway Street where the senior center is, that's why I asked for that. People were not happy about it, but that's too darn bad. When it comes to safety, that's the only way to slow people down. If we put a sign up there, they could care less. And I'm not saying just them, maybe me too. I mean, it could be me too, but I see the pictures here. I just don't understand this word.
Chicane.
Chicane?
Sure.
Chicane?
Yeah, chicane. Basically, it's when you take a very straight road that people tend to speed down.
Yes.
And you artificially create curves.
Yes.
To force people and it forces people to slow down. There's a good example in Andover, just off their town common, and
Yeah.
it's a very straight cut-through street that comes off 125 right to downtown, so people were just zipping down it, and it's
That's
a
right.
residential street, and they put in
Yes,
chicanes,
they
and you
did.
really can't go fast on it.
You can't.
You just can't.
And that's exactly the truth. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? Thank you. Next, we have the Western and Foster Street traffic study. Councilor Conway?
Yeah, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Natasha, through you to Natasha, I want to thank you for the report. I think it certainly is evident that there are a lot of issues there at Westford and Foster, because I did receive a number of telephone calls, and people were, and I don't live in that specific area, but they've told me that there's been plenty of accidents. It's a very dangerous area, and that I'm glad that we're doing something with it. Is a four-way? We're doing a four-way?
Yeah, a four-way stop is warranted.
Do you feel that that's going to solve the problem, by the way?
I think it's going to improve the situation. I think in addition, there's parking right up to the intersection right now, the way the lines are drawn. So I think when we eliminate parking really close to the intersection, make it a four-way stop, and put up a notice that it's an all-way stop, I think people are going to have to learn. They're used to being able to just go straight on westward without stopping, and people are going to have to learn to make that stop. So that may require some additional signage. I do think there's a potential that a traffic signal might actually be warranted, but we wouldn't know that without traffic counts.
Right, and I think that Councilor Mercier, I think, they hit it right on the head as far as, a lot of people, they don't stop at these four-way stops. They just keep on going right through. You see it time and time again. And I will say that at Broadway Street, with the senior center, I mean, there's no doubt that people do slow down there. They have to slow down there. So I think that, will there be a study done after this, or?
I would have to find the funding for the study, but certainly if we can find funding that.
How much money would it be for the?
If a consultant were to do it, it would be in the $4,000 to $5,000 range for an intersection. If you're interested in traffic calming, which is what Councilor Mercier was talking about, which would be something like curb extensions, and there are actually a couple traffic calming options that could be appropriate at those intersections.
Right.
And if we were just going to do traffic counts and try and do the design in-house, which might not be currently possible with the staff we have, but depending on what might happen in the future, it would be less expensive.
Okay. I think certainly that's an area that we have to monitor, because I know that, taking a look at the data here, needless to say, it's a problem area. So
Yes,
I thank
agreed.
you for the report, and hopefully those four-way stop signs will slow things down, and if not, we'll be back to the drawing table. Thank you.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So your report also calls for a four-way stop sign at Foster and Princeton too, right?
Yeah, yes.
There's been several accidents there. In one accident, the vehicle ended up on its roof.
Yeah,
which
it's very
is-
dangerous.
I don't even know how you can go that fast in that area to have so fast that the vehicle ends up on its roof.
Yeah.
But, so when will these four-way stop signs go up? How soon will that?
So I just have to put it on the 60-day trial memo on the next agenda, and then they can go up as soon as it's approved by council.
Okay. And then they go up for 60 days, and if everything's okay, they would just stay?
Correct.
Okay. Does it matter is Princeton Boulevard, is that a state highway too?
I don't know the answer off the top of my head. I think it might be. Yeah.
But that doesn't matter, we can still do the four-way stop?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All set. Okay, next we have Municipal Broadband Network, Councilor Cirillo.
Hi, yes, thank you. I was actually very thrilled to read this report because the city, we sent out the RFP and we had a fantastic response, and I'm really happy to see that Sci-Fi Networks scored in the proposal in accordance with the comparative criteria, and it sounds like they're doing this for free for the city, which is such a win-win for the residents. And so, Connor, can you speak to the motion response? It's fantastic. I really would like to have the residents watching hear about it and understand that we are going to have we're going to have an option for another provider. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Through you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm going to let Moran Fernandez, who is here, do a lot of the explaining of it, as he's much more familiar with the details. Just generally, this, in response to the motion, the city issued an RFP for municipal broadband, and I think this presents a very exciting opportunity to the city to provide not necessarily a municipally owned broadband network, but a network funded through private investment that would come at no cost to the taxpayers. However, it would achieve some goals that the City Council has and has had for quite some time, and that's providing some competition to Comcast, at least as far as internet service is provided. But Mr. Fernandez, if you could explain further.
Thank you. Good evening, councilors. We are very excited about this as well in the MIS department from a technology perspective, as well as a resident and taxpayer myself. This basically, it's important to talk about what it's not before we talk about what it is. It is not a video cable franchise. We are not talking about video services. When folks start talking about wanting choice, they immediately start talking about, we want more choice, we want video. It eventually becomes a larger conversation about internet access. That's what this is about. It's about internet access. But beyond that, it's really about establishing an infrastructure for the future. The council in the past has repeatedly requested competition with internet service providers throughout the city. There aren't many ways to do that without spending a lot of money to build an infrastructure. The city put an RFP out. The RFP specifically requested for applicants to submit for an opportunity to establish an infrastructure within the city, doing so at no charge to the city and at no cost to the taxpayers. Something that is what you hear when folks talk about Google coming into a municipality, or when you talk about Verizon Fios, they come in and they bring in fiber. Sci-Fi Networks does this across the country successfully. They do it as a private entity. They essentially bring the fiber in, similar to how National Grid has telephone poles everywhere. They extend the telephone poles everywhere to bring infrastructure out throughout the municipality. Sci-Fi would extend fiber throughout the municipality to establish that infrastructure. If someone wants to connect into that infrastructure, for example, at my home, I want to bring the internet connection into my home, I can do so, and I can leverage internet service providers that Sci-Fi would bring into the community with the goal of competitive pricing, higher speeds, etc. But more importantly, this also meets the goal of the council and the manager's goal for the economic development within the city. Providing an opportunity to have high-speed fiber is something that most municipalities want. A lot of municipalities have tried and a lot have failed. The ones that have failed often have wound up failing at great cost to taxpayers and to the city themselves. Again, coming back to the fact that this is at no cost to the taxpayer or to the city itself. So it's really a unique opportunity that we've never seen before. We don't know if we'll see again. They have signed with Salem, Massachusetts as well, who vetted this out extensively. And one of the things we're hoping is that as this moves forward, hopefully to a subcommittee for review, we can have Sci-Fi come in, do a presentation, and hopefully we can move forward with it quicker than not, so that Sci-Fi can look at the logistics of having our community built out simultaneous with what they're trying to do in Salem. That's a general overview.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm very excited about this.
Council Cirillo, then Council Leahy, then Council Noon.
Oh,
I'm sorry, you all set? Oh, I'm
yes,
sorry.
thank you.
Council Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an excellent motion because through the years, we have been trying so diligently to try to get competition in here, and it seems at every turn of the event, we just get someone and then they change their mind. I don't know if the cable company contacted them and said, listen, we're the king here, so, but whatever you did with sci-fi, that's quite remarkable. So that is a great motion. But I want to say that if we could have, according to your report, if we could have the city solicitor prepare the vote to have a representative of Sci-Fi make a presentation to the city council, as well as refer this issue to the Technology and Utilities Subcommittee for further discussion, I think this is the start of something good. Because if you remember, competition is healthy, and that's what drove the gas prices down many years ago for your car. They were having the gas war, and who made out but the people that needed gas for their vehicles. So if this could be brought in here.
The motion, so you need a second.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, motion. Yes. Second by Council Leahy. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. That's pretty good.
Council
Thank
Leahy.
you, Karen. Great job.
Sure, thank you. Through you to Moran. So, just so everybody's, this is just internet, right? It's not
Yes, sir.
TV or phone or?
It is not necessarily TV or phone. This is just laying down the infrastructure to bring in internet service providers who can then provide connectivity to the internet.
Yeah.
They would do so with a fiber connection to your home, similar to Google Fiber, Verizon, Fios, et cetera. Once you have a connection to your home, that's a fiber-based connection, there are other service providers that they can also bring on board to provide telephony. If they want to bring in a service provider that wants to reach out to the city to establish a video franchise that can also leverage that fiber, that's also something that can be done. There are several other unique opportunities this presents to the city, whether it's the fact that now we could have connectivity of fiber throughout the city for the utilities. So for example, whether it's monitoring the ever-present sewage overflow issue, right? Or whether it's monitoring everything in our pipes or putting up cameras at intersections, interconnecting to cameras, doing lighting controls throughout the city. This provides us the opportunity to really brand ourselves as a connected city. And as a connected city, that opens the door to a lot of grants as well, because then there are many grants out there to bring in things that a city can leverage once they have the fiber throughout the city.
Thank you.
Council Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the report, Connors and Mr. Fernandez. The indication is that this has been done elsewhere, and you indicated Salem, Mass. Is one of the area that Sci-Fi Network has been operated in. Do we know whether or not this is in terms of the pricing, is this better pricing than Comcast in terms of the internet and the quality in terms of high speed? Do we learn from Salem or Salem residents that this will certainly be a good thing for our city, for our resident, as far as competition with Comcast on the high speed of the internet?
My apologies, Councilor. I didn't mean to suggest that it was already in place in Salem, Mass. They voted on this last year to bring it into the city, but they haven't had it installed yet. It's not something that gets done within 3, 6, 9 months. There is a lead time. A lot of times it has to do with the logistics of construction. So once an agreement is signed with the city, then they come in and they start working throughout the city to assess the community, to identify where are folks really interested in this, how many folks want this, what's the competition, et cetera. As they start the build-out, then they also start, which the build-out is laying out all the fiber and all that before they really start connecting homes. Then they also start working with bringing in competitive internet service providers who will set their own rates. So the city has nothing to do with the setting of the rate. Sci-Fi has nothing to do with setting of the rate. It's a true competitive marketplace for whoever signs on to their fiber. In the communities that they are present, they have multiple service providers, and they do have rates that are different from those that Comcast has. However, it's been shown that in communities where Comcast is, or say Verizon is, or there's just a single provider, as other providers come in, the initial provider, say Comcast for example, has marketed aggressively to lower their rates. So as you look at competition, oftentimes you'll find that the incumbent provider like Comcast will say, hey, we're not just going to sit idly by while somebody comes in and tries to undercut our market and take our share. They may also respond with dropping their prices, but that's not a guarantee. It's just something that does happen often in the communities when there are multiple providers.
So a Sci-Fi network has been operated in other city and towns already, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
In those city and town that Sci-Fi have been operated in, and also the same city and town that have Comcast or other providers, do we have a chance to look at whether or not the price, because of Sci-Fi being a competitor, that either be a Comcast drop its rate, sometimes they drop the rate for only a few months, but suppose that they do drop their rate, does that also, same thing, see that Sci-Fi rate is lower, remain lower than the other competitor like Comcast?
I don't know that for a fact, Counselor. I can check, but it is difficult to do a market analysis across the vendors that are there because there are other communities across the country. But I can certainly ask to see what information I can get for you on that, sir.
Well, thank you. I think just an opportunity to have another provider, certainly, you're right, prompt Comcast to look at their service, also their cost as well. So I'm glad to see this coming, and I'm sure our resident too is going to be happy in the year to come if they take a year to do that. Thank you.
Councilor Cirillo?
I think that Councilor Mercier took care of this, but I was going to make the motion to have the law department prepare a proper vote to authorize the city manager to enter into an agreement with Sci-Fi. I think.
Well, she did, yeah.
Yeah.
Motion was
So-
made.
Yep, so I'm squared away. Thank you.
Councilor Conway, then Councilor Leahy, then Councilor Malinowski.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is, it's a great move. As we've all said tonight, competition is certainly very helpful to the taxpayer, and I congratulate Councilor Cirillo for putting this on, this motion. The question I have here, you mentioned about Salem, Mass, and it hasn't been set up yet. Is that correct?
Correct, sir.
Right. Now, taking into consideration the size of the city of Lowell, how long would it take to set everything up here?
I don't know, sir.
Roughly?
I don't know, but Sci-Fi is willing to come to a presentation and provide additional details on what they would speculate for the time frame. It is something that they would probably do a phased approach, but it really depends on construction schedules and such.
Well, as you said, that it has been done in other places, is that correct? Okay. So those other places that we're talking about, how long did it take to do those places, and is there anything that's comparable to the size of the city of Lowell?
From the signing of the contract to lighting up the first home in 3 of the communities I know of, it took about 2 years.
Okay, 2 years.
Yes, sir.
All right.
And in terms of the size of Lowell, I can't answer that precisely. I think the bigger challenge Lowell has is the canals and riverways and crossing those. So getting the fiber across those presents kind of a unique challenge that many of the other municipalities that currently use Sci-Fi may not have.
And thank you for that. And Councilor Noon alluded to something here about the potential cost savings. So again, going back to areas or going back to cities or towns that are doing this now, what type of a decrease in cost have you seen on something like this, roughly?
So what we've seen is about 25 to 40%, depending upon the individual community, what they had in place. They are across the country, so there's different vendors that they're competing against. There's also the fact that this is for your internet services. This is not for your video cable. So internet services are not typically the highest component of your bill. And as everyone knows, oftentimes these vendors like Comcast will lock you into a triple play, internet, phone, and video. So there's also the question of, which of those services would be offset, and when you remove one of those services from Comcast, the prices on Comcast end might go up. That's just based on the way that they do their marketing.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilor Leahy?
Sure. So one quick question too is, with all the Wi-Fi that's going on, so some people say that the 5G will be here and we won't need fiber. How do you look at that?
So the issue, the first issue with 5G typically has to do with the fact that we're a mill city, so we have a lot of brick everywhere, and structures like that will create some issues with 5G. However, one of the benefits of something like this, where you're laying down an infrastructure, is if someone, say for example Verizon or Sprint, just picking a name, wanted to expand to deliver 5G services here in the city, then they could reach out to Sci-Fi to use the fiber they've already laid out, which makes it quicker and easier for them to deploy, and then they could turn around and negotiate with the city as applicable for right-of-way for equipment that might be placed on poles or elsewhere. So it positions the city into a better place to allow for 5G expansion, as well as any other future services that may be available, anything beyond 5G, for example.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Councilor Milazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a good report, and thank you, Moran, for the information. And it does say it's an exciting opportunity for the city, and I do truly believe that. But as we all know, technology changes by the minute. I think Apple just came out yesterday with their own TV network, where you can actually pick the number of channels you want to actually pay for on a monthly basis, and it's all, as I understand it, it's all wireless. But I think that what Moran said about us being a connected city is important for our future as an economic development community. So I think that we'll have the vote done. We'll go to the technology subcommittee. But at the same time, I just caution my colleagues that 2 years from now, we could be involved in a technology that doesn't need to necessarily have the cables, if you will. We could, again, I don't know, you bring up a good point about the brick buildings and so forth, but I think 5G and what's happening in the future with Apple and with Google is going to, continue to drive this discussion. But I think it's a very good, a good step to take.
Madam Manager?
Thank you. Thank you. Just quickly following up, I think all the points made here tonight are important. Looking at Sci-Fi, meeting with them, talking to them, I think it's important that they come and make a presentation to the council through subcommittee to explain. But I think some of the key points include, for economic development, this is important in terms of fiber. It's not costing the city money. If the city were to try and attempt this on its own with a municipal network, it would be cost prohibitive on many levels, not just the installation, but the maintenance and the service of such a service. We just don't have the capability to do that. I think as Councilor Milanazzo points out, at one point we did talk to RCN, which was a motion by Councilor Milanazzo, which is more of a full-service cable and internet service. And they were going to look at Lowell as a potential community that they would consider coming into. This would not prevent that from happening and bring in more competition. And that was one of my first questions. Are we signing up for or limiting ourselves to this one fiber company, Sci-Fi? And the answer was no. This is just so we aren't spending money and we're not limiting our future options, especially given where are we headed in this age of technology. And so I think those are some important points. And then the other important point, I think, is for economic development and getting fiber and access to businesses as well as homes is another option and opportunity. So, and then lastly, no offense against Comcast, but one thing we know here in the council and in City Hall is due to the fact that many subscribers are cutting the cable or cutting the cord, we get less and less money each year from Comcast to the city for the PEG accounts and things like that because of the trend where people are being more selective about what they're or how they're going to buy entertainment. So this is all a very changing area. So I think this is one option that we're exploring, but I think it's important to know we're not closing the door on other potential opportunities down the road. But it is a fascinating area, so I think if the council could hear from the representatives of the company, it may answer even more of these good questions. I think Hartford, Connecticut is one city that does have sci-fi and others across the country. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Thank you. All right, next we have information reports. First one is the settlement of the first relocation claim for 75 Arcan Drive. Madam Manager.
Yes, this is just by way of information prepared by the Law Department. The solicitor could speak more directly to it, but this particular doctor is choosing to retire. The relocation payment has been approved by the Department DHCD, and so we can move forward with that. I don't know if the solicitor has any questions or any more to add.
Yeah, I have a question.
Councilor
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city solicitor, can you tell me which doctor is retiring? What business is it that's retiring?
It's the ophthalmologist.
Dr. Montminy.
Oh, it's him, so he's retiring.
He already did, I think.
Oh, he did. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
So why do we have to pay if he's retiring?
It's part of the law. If he's either moving or retiring, we have to pay him under the statute, under the relocation statute.
It doesn't make sense. If he's going to retire anyways, why do we give
Well,
him a...
maybe he wasn't going to retire anyways. I don't, I guess that's the question. He could have had the option to stay put and work in that building. But I'm not, just explaining I imagine that's the rationale under the law, that the solicitor can probably address this. But we are required to pay if someone's either moving or retiring. Madam Solicitor.
And that's 100% correct. And so what we're really doing is compensating the individual for the equipment and other items that were in the business at the time that the city did the taking. So at the time that the city did acquire the property, took the property, it was a business and we are responsible for it. As a result, our relocation expert has been working on this as well as the other individuals, the other businesses, and it was good news that the state essentially approved his number. They obviously also have a relocation expert with at times different figures, but the parties have been working well together and coming to acceptable conclusions.
Yeah, and that's just mass general law or whatever?
Yes, it's part of the laws of eminent domain taking, as well as in the Code of Mass Regulations.
Okay. Thank you.
All set. Councilor Milazzo.
Thank you. As a follow-up to Councilor Leahy's question, the fact that we now have paid $129,000 for the loss of personal property, does the city now own that personal property? And if we do, can we sell it? Can we auction it off? Or can we try to recoup some of the money? I guess is my question.
Yes to all of those questions. Yes. And that is something that again is already being looked at.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And again, for the, I think we've talked about it before, but we had to present a relocation plan that our consultant worked on, as well as the doctor's consultants worked on. It was submitted to DHCD with the state. They approved our plan, and this is part of the plan as we're moving through. And so this particular settlement was also negotiated with our consultant and their consultant, and then ultimately DHCD approved it.
All set? All set? Okay. Next, we have the update in the annual municipal lien auction sale. Madam Manager?
Yes, this, again, I'll turn over to the solicitor, just updating the council as to our annual auction, which is expected to take place, is it April 12th? The letters will be sent, if you want to address the council.
So the auction will be at the end of April, the 26th of April. However, what we're seeing is part of the ongoing pattern of these auctions, which have really worked extremely well for Lowell, and I think arguably ultimately for taxpayers as well. A lot of the money will come in long before we have an auction, and so we continue the practice of allowing residents that if, say, for example, they're eligible for an elderly tax exemption, same with military, they are not included in this. If a resident is in the process of selling their home, they are not included in that year's auction. If a resident wanted to enter into a payment plan, we allow that as well, as long as they abide by the payment plan. But what we're finding is that I think last year there were no requests for payment plans. Individuals are paying off the amount that's due. So this year, since this letter was first drafted for the council, we now have a total of $500,000 that has come in, with an additional $100,000 in fines. So far, just from the letters alone, over $600,000 has come into the city.
Okay. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city solicitor, it says in the report that $368,000 was collected, right? And I'm wondering, was that achieved by people who received a letter and got nervous and decided to pay what they owed?
That's correct.
So am I to assume that their property is not in lien now?
That's correct.
Okay, so how many properties, this is the information that I would have liked in the report. How many properties are we talking about? And could we have a breakdown of the properties that were liened and those that were removed from the lien? I mean, out of a matter of curiosity, that's all. And so when the auction takes place on April 26th, how many properties are we gonna auction off? And how much do we anticipate we'll be receiving in money? These are just the things that I wanted to know about. If you don't mind, if I'm not asking you at the top of your head to come up with a figure, but I would like to just know about this.
Sure. We are going to be doing some a follow-up report as well as a summary as to how this has worked now over these several years and what our figures are. With respect to how many properties will be included in the auction, it will be difficult to say. Generally speaking, the auctions have properties that are recently in tax title are the ones that have been satisfying their accounts. We still do have properties that have been in tax title for many years, and those are being addressed through other methods, although they're always ultimately sort of included in this phase. In other words, people get letters as well. But if a property owner's property is essentially underwater, meaning that the amount due the city exceeds that which it is valued at or assessed at, those properties present other challenges, and so they are dealt with in other ways. There's about I think $3 million outstanding, but we will have a report as to, from this particular effort, how much money will come in as a result of these letters.
You know,
And again, it's, to date now, it's updated from the first communication, so we're at about $600,000 now.
It's not that I don't have compassion for people that fall upon hard times and they're behind in their taxes. I understand that. That could happen to me. That could happen to anybody, and I have compassion for that. But when I see in the paper the list of all the people that owe taxes, you see they owe this much for water or this much for taxes, and it's really not a big deal. Maybe if you add it all up to everybody, yeah, it probably is. But then you see these people that owe property after property, and their name is here, there, that they owe. You add it all together, they owe a ton of money to the city, and I'm thinking, that's not fair to the rest of us taxpayers that have to come up with the gap and fill that gap of all the money that is not being paid to us, and that's not fair. And those are the people that I'm talking about, not people that are struggling and having a hard time. But anyway, thank you.
Council, we can get a report. Obviously, it will change between now and the sale because people may be making payments, so they'll come off the
Well, that'll
list
be
of
good.
things. Right. But once we get to that point, we can give you an update as
Sure,
far as what
that's
happened as a
fine.
result of this effort, these mailings, how many came in, how many
Sure.
are left, and what properties those are.
Right, thank you so much.
Councilor Kennedy, then Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't mind saying that this was an excellent idea when it was first proposed in 2012, and that I think in the aggregate, it's brought in well over $10 million. But I also think it's important to point out that two things. One is that it isn't the auction. We're not auctioning off the property. We're auctioning off the lien for the property. But I think that Council Mercer is absolutely correct when she says that people that don't pay their taxes, everybody else that does pay their taxes has to subsidize them because they haven't paid their taxes. So it's really important, and I think that the report that comes out of the law department will indicate that the amount of delinquency that we have now compared to 2012 is greatly diminished. At least I expect that that's what the report to do. And then finally, I would like to say that every city doesn't do this. Every community doesn't do this. And I had an opportunity earlier this week to speak to a mayor of another mid-sized community and who's having fiscal problems. And I suggested that they may want to do the municipal lien auction. And it was a new idea for them. But I think that they're going to do it. And so I do think that it's something that's paid off very well for the city since we've had it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Noon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this auction of lien take place April 12th?
26th.
26th, April 26th, and where
Right in this room.
and what
It's where-
time?
It's usually at around 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock, 10 a.m., right? So this auction of lien, when you do auction of lien, is it my recollection that you do it in a cluster? Is that correct?
Yes, and what we tried to do is take some of these properties that both Councilor Mercier and Kennedy have referenced, that again are the more challenging properties, and we add those into these bundles as another means of helping to clear properties that have been in tax title for sometimes decades, and sell them off.
When you do that, you also put condition on those, auctioneer that coming in as well,
There
as
are
part of that?
Yes, there are lien auctions, but generally the lien auction is that once we auction it off, they have to continue to, whoever purchases the liens would have to continue to keep the properties current.
Okay. So April 26th of this year, at 10 o'clock, here at the City Council chamber is open to public. Is that correct?
It's always been open to the
Thank you.
public, yes.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, thank you. Next, fiscal year 2020 budget, NSS compliance. Madam Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. This is a report prepared by the CFO, giving some information to the council as we move into this next fiscal year, the 2020 budget, and also information regarding our net school spending and where we stand with the state on that. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Baldwin to give the report.
Thank you, Madam Manager. The most salient points in the report have to do with the recent certification that was published by DESE for fiscal year 18's net school spending compliance. So for FY 18, and the report is always, there's a 1-year lag in the certification. The FY 18 certification was that the city was $7.1 million above the net school spending requirement. They also release a preliminary projection for the current budget year, FY 19, and we do look comfortably within the net school spending range above where we have been for several years, which is notable. And there's an attachment to the report which stacks Lowell against the other 11 gateway communities. And Lowell is second only to Pittsfield in funding of their school district. So Pittsfield was about $15.3 million above the net school spending. Lowell was at, as I said before, 7.1. Other communities like Brockton, Fall River, Fitchburg, Haverhill, etc., are all hovering around the compliance, if not below compliance. So it's notable when you compare Lowell to its peers in gateway cities and not just necessarily some of the suburban municipalities. So we are moving along in the budget process. This letter is also an update to the council. We do plan to bring the budget document to the council at some time in May. And we are working with all departments. It is another challenging budget year, but the city manager is resolved to bring a balanced budget to this city council in short order. Thank you.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you to the manager. So I had contacted you today. I was going to make a suggestion that your office reach out to the councilors, and we could each give you maybe our top 3 priorities to help direct you for the upcoming budget, and any other questions you may have on the increase, you could ask us about that, and
Sure.
anything that you might need to help put that budget together.
We will follow up, and we'll be in contact with the council if there are specific priorities that you would like to see us try and incorporate or attempt in the budget and in the cost and so forth. So
Okay.
we will do that.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. This is a good report, Madam Manager. Kind of lays out the framework as we moved into the next fiscal year. So right off the bat, the schools are getting significant amount of money, which is a good thing. But general localized aid, what was that figure coming from the city? I know it's low. Was it
Under
just
the
like
governor's,
700,000?
I don't think it was even that much,
Right.
Counselor.
That's fine. I guess my point is, the schools are getting additional 7.6 million, and the city local aid is marginal. But again, and I know this council we've addressed resolutions, we've done everything we can to home rule petition regarding charter school reimbursement. So between the city's pension liability and the charter school, we're talking 3.4 million that we have to make up. And if we're only getting 700,000 or so in additional local aid, that hurts. You're looking at a 17.2 million gap. That's from the total department requests at this point. That sort of the wish list that will be narrowed down before you present the balanced budget, correct? So could I just ask a question on healthcare premiums and debt service, because that's sort of the next big increase that we look at. What are we looking at least for the healthcare assessment?
So we did receive communication from our consultants that the commissioners, the Group Insurance Commission, Board of Commissioners has voted on the premiums for next year. And that's about a 3.3% increase in the premiums. We're working through the detailed budget numbers to arrive at a figure for the budget, but that's several $100,000 probably $400,000 or $500,000 just off the bat. For health insurance, debt service will increase next year. The city has been pursuing for the past couple of years a very aggressive 5-year capital plan. And as those projects are completed and the debt service comes onto the operating budget, we see increases in the debt service portion of the operating budget. However, this council wisely created a debt service stabilization fund in the past that does have a balance that will be used to support some of that increase.
Okay. That's good. That's good to know. And I presume at some point you'll be bringing in a new contract, Madam Manager, for trash and recycling that we all know has, as a result of recycling issues throughout the globe, affects us right here in Lowell. But we're looking at $730,000 increase. So, you know, just some simple math, we're looking at a minimum of $5 million increase, in addition to whittling down those increases from department heads. So,
And the increase, at least under the governor's proposed budget for next fiscal year, $703,000 in local aid, unrestricted local aid.
okay. Not the greatest of news, but, okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the report, and we'll look forward to, discussions as we move forward on the budget.
All right, next report is on the new waste management contract. Madam Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to the council. We have a report that outlines the new contract that began January 1st of this year. This is for a 6-year contract commencing January 1st, 2019. There are a number of highlights in the report, but let me just say that, some of the highlights, and Jim Troop is here who can speak directly to this. We negotiated this with Waste Management over an extended period of time. We were able to negotiate a 6-year, 1 year as an option from the last year contract, so that was able to keep costs down in that first year, and then the other 5 years. This does have recycling contamination fee. There's a baseline of 10%. However, at one point, our contamination for our recycling was 40%. And so there's a cost associated escalating depending on how much contamination we have. I think the last reading was down to 25%, but we have a ways to go to bring it down to 10%. So the good news is if we can bring our costs down, we can save money. And there are some other highlights that I'll turn it over to Mr. Troop to speak to.
Yeah, I think the response speaks for itself with some of the highlights, some of the costs, as the manager just alluded to. We were able to negotiate with Waste Management to execute the option year in the contract. Waste Management was ready to walk away from the table without executing it, but the manager's efforts allowed us to really kind of decrease the costs over year one. However, industry standard has forced us to pay for recycling contamination. It's not just Lowell, it's nation, it's worldwide. And it's a new factor. Once we pass through calendar 19, that we'll start paying for it. As we said in the report, 40% contamination is an alarming level. And the solid waste and recycling team now has 2 full-time enforcement officers. And we have already seen some drastic results and improvements in the audits. The latest audit that we have received, 25%. So that's a nice percentage decrease. But like the manager said, it's a long way to go. And it's a great opportunity for us to really affect the bottom line of this contract for some tremendous savings.
Councilor Cirillo, then Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Leahy.
Hi, yes. I read through the report. Thank you so much. I saw that the last price adjustment occurred in 2009. I'm going to take a wild guess and say that the prices have gone up since 2009. So how are we as a city, for example, how much does it cost a resident per year for trash removal?
Well, the baseline as set by ordinance is $125.
$125 a year.
So,
and how much does it cost the city
well, there's a significant subsidy coming from the general fund. There's a little bit of a gap or so. I don't know the exact number, but
Rough estimate of the gap?
Connor, do you have the number on that one? Full
Yeah.
cost?
So the amount of revenue the city takes in for overall from the trash fees from residents is approximately $3.2 million. The cost for collection and disposal of solid waste and recycling has been on the average of like $5.56 million a year. So the difference between the two is the amount at which the taxes are subsidizing this operation. Now that number, the $5.5 million, is scheduled to increase from this contract. So it will only grow if.
But I also think that it's important to note that when the city looked at the schedule of fees as a whole, we intentionally left out the trash because we didn't know the effect of this contract. Now that we are able to project these costs over the next 6 years, I think that it's time to have some intelligent discussions about what the fee should be.
I agree. Thank you.
Was that Councilor Elliott, Councilor Lee, then Councilor Mercia?
No, I'm all set.
You all set? Okay, Councilor Lee, Councilor Mercia.
Thank you. So we did say we were gonna, through you to the manager, we're gonna talk about the whole big barrel, small barrel
Yes.
situation.
And that's part of the ordinance, not part of the contract, but it's part of our ordinance in terms of how it's charged. And what we want to do is bring this to the subcommittee. I think it has been referred, at least some part of this has been referred to the subcommittee.
Yes, yeah.
And we were waiting to have some more specific recommendations. So now we do know what the next 6-year window is. As I said, there's not an enormous change in year one because of that option year we were able to exercise. But there will be modest increases to the waste management portion, but it's the contamination that also is going to be in this contract that wasn't in the old one. And so those contamination recycling fees. So what we would propose, and I think it's mentioned in the report, is bringing this information to a subcommittee so that we can talk about this. I think many residents, and you know, it's been 10 years since we've revisited the cost of this, and maybe once upon a time it pretty much did pay for the trash and recycling collection, but not anymore. The city subsidizes it very heavily. So, and at the same time, we'd like to also revisit the issue of the size of the barrels, which has been brought up here before, whether it pertains to our seniors, or even explore some other options, whether people may want to opt for different size barrels regardless of their age and have different price structures. So these are all things that we've spoken to Gunther and Jim about, and we'd like to explore with the subcommittee in more full detail.
All right, and we just kind of want to make it as simple as possible. We should discuss that about, price of a barrel is this, price of a barrel is that, and then just a straight senior discount or something maybe. Then I saw the talk about the picking up the trash in the parks.
Yeah, we have, that is part of this contract, although but we can step away from it if we find a better or more affordable source. So it is in this contract, the parks pickup. We've received some complaints sometimes in terms of whether it's timely done or done on weekends. Jim, maybe you can address the issues around this.
Yeah, so the parks pose a particular challenge in trying to get the vehicles, the equipment that Waste Management has in there. They had a dedicated service that would go in to pick up the barrels. They gave us a bottom line figure for what it would cost, but it allows the city to maybe explore a few options to maybe even take that out of the contract, outsourcing it to a different vendor, maybe going into a carry-in, carry-out, an elimination of barrels where there's a small volume. But again, I think that these are things that should be on the table for discussion and how maybe we can affect the bottom line of this current contract. But as it is, I think it's important to know that the services that we're providing in the parks are going to stay as they are right now. And we'll have to do a good job following up with Waste Management to make sure that their promises are kept.
Okay, and just one other question. There isn't anything in the report. What was the discussion with the yard waste pickup?
Yard waste, yeah, we do have, this is different this year. So, and this was at the recommendation of Gunther and of the department. During the peak season of yard waste, spring and fall, there will be weekly collections. In the 2 summer months, it will be every other week. The main reason for that is the trash, the pickups are half full and it's just not as needed. So there is a cost savings of $40,000 each from those 2 months. Jim, I don't.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to note that this is still more than most municipalities surrounding Lowell are offering to their residents. So there's a significant volume drop-off during the summertime where it's really just grass clippings and such. We'll still provide the same level of service to the people, but I think that we will effectively schedule pickups around some critical times, the springtime and the fall time, with leaf pickup and the debris pickup that occurs this time of year every year.
Yeah, we did hear from Waste Management that most communities don't do that. They don't pick up every single week, and certainly not in the peak months, and that most of the time the hall is half, if not much less full, so it's pretty wasteful to be paying for it when there's just not as high a demand.
Okay, and we'll do the money in here, the contract for the education.
Yeah, they are mandated
Figure
to
a way to get
spend.
that information out.
Yeah, absolutely, and we do have the 2 coordinators now, and part of the contract, they have to pay annually toward education. And this is going to be a really important point going forward, so that people understand what they can and what they cannot. And then the enforcement.
I thought I was doing a good job recycling, but then there's stuff that I didn't know you shouldn't be putting in there.
That's exactly right. I think a lot of us thought, if it was paper, it was plastic. If it was glass, it could, or it could go in there, and that's not necessarily true, so.
Thank you.
Councilor Mercia?
Thank you. I was going to bring up the service changes in regards to the yard waste. So the 2 summer months would be July and August then?
Yeah, I think overall with the, let's say, 39 weeks, there'll be 10 weeks on the front end, 10 weeks on the back end, and maybe 20 weeks in the middle. Some give or take a few weeks on either end, but they will definitely be scheduled appropriately during peak seasons.
And I want you to know that I'm very grateful that the yard waste started today for me, because I did do a lot of raking on that beautiful Sunday. It was a Sunday. It was a beautiful day. I was out there from 1 o'clock to 6:30 at night, and boy, the next day when I got up, I could barely walk, but that's okay. And I just want to ask you, we have a new Parks Commissioner?
Correct.
And he is?
Shannon Cohen is the new Deputy Superintendent of Parks and Cemeteries.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mazza?
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the report, Jim. It's remarkable to me that it's a 6-year contract in light of what's going on. I can almost say worldwide. I mean, I guess I understand China's stopped accepting plastic from most countries now. So I'm curious as to how you were able to do a 6-year contract, and if there's anything in the contract that actually would cancel a contract in light of a lot of the recycling plants closing because of what's going on in China. And then my second question has to do with the recycling fees, the contamination fees. Do we charge any of those fees back to the property owner? Or
No, I mean, as I said, these were not fees in the prior contract, and so we do need to revisit this whole area of fees under the ordinance. And so we are heavily subsidizing both the, trash and recycling fees.
I mean, it's remarkable because I want to say a month ago, my recycling top was open about 4 inches, and an inspector came and was actually writing out a ticket because it was actually opened, not that I was putting something in there.
Under the contract, they don't have to pick it up if it's not closed.
Right.
So.
It turned out we were able to,
You negotiated.
Right. We took out something, and next week we'd put it out in 2 weeks. But it was just remarkable they were putting an orange ticket on because it was open. But again, to the point about the 6-year contract.
Yeah, the real variable, of course, the new piece is the recycling, the contamination charge. And so to an extent, we have some control over that. The better job we can do as a community of educating and reinforcing that, the more we can save money. And so that really is going to be a goal in this period. Other than that, the increases were not extraordinary. And as I said, because we were able to exercise the option year, making it 6, keeping it artificially low because of that option, because at the time that contract had been negotiated, no such thing as recycling fees, and the fees were more modest. So there is some language in terms of extraordinary, I'll let the solicitor, we did negotiate this, and it's extraordinary events, which is unusual for these contracts, as well as we have the same protection, but the solicitor can speak to that.
We do, and the only thing I would add on there is even with respect to a change in the law and change of circumstances. So we did have internal discussions exactly on the point that you're raising, and there are ways for the city to be able to pull away from this contract, and by the same token, those are extended to the contractor as well.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes, I did have one more question. So the family pays, I think you said $125 a year. How much is it for the city to pick up a bin each week? Do you have that cost? Or so each week we go out and we pick up trash. At that household, how much does it cost for that bin each week to be picked up?
I think the easiest calculation is you'd want to take the $6 million and divide it by 25,000 customers. So, I mean, I think
we have 25,000 customers.
The
Connor,
fairest,
quick math.
And then divide by 52.
The fairest assumption is just to calculate the 6 million by the 25,000 customers.
Okay. All right.
Well, we're trying to crunch the number.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just curious.
$400, Connor, quick, is that about right?
Connor, how much?
A little less?
We'll get that to you. But we know the fee on
Yes,
an annual basis is more than.
Quick math, it's just shy of $400.
Right. I'm just curious because, for a resident to be paying $125 a year, I'm just curious. Come on. No, 400 for each week, for each pickup. Okay.
Year. That would be the annual
year.
cost.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Just curious.
All set. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. All right, I need a motion to accept and place everything in the file by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Kennedy. We did 5.3. Next is votes from the city manager. Vote to accept and expand a rapid LED street light conversion grant from Mass DOER. Waive the full reading and second reading by title. Authorize the city manager to accept and expand the rapid LED street light conversion grant from the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources to convert a city-owned Cobra Head street lights to LED. I need a motion to adopt by Councilor Mercia, second by Councilor Conway. Any discussion? Councilor Mercia?
I just want to say that the LED lighting is magnificent. They light up a wide area of your street. I know there are complaints that they're too bright, but I'd rather be safe. I think they're wonderful. And if I have that on my street, which I do, everybody should have it. They should have that safety factor. Thank you.
Thank you, I agree. Madam Manager?
I was just going to say Catherine Moses is here to, if any council has any questions about the report and the update regarding this particular program.
Any questions? Thank you. Roll call.
Gee, she
Council
stayed
Newell.
here all night. She
Yes.
can't-
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Council Cirillo.
Yes.
Council Conway.
Yes.
Council Elliott.
Yes.
Council Kennedy.
Yes.
Council Leahy.
Yes.
Council Mercia.
Yes.
Council Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
All right, next 6.2, vote to accept and expend fiscal year 19 4 earmarked state funds totaling $1 million from the Department of Conservation and Recreation for Economic Development. Waive the full reading, second reading by title. Authorize the city manager acting through the Department of Planning and Development to accept and expend fiscal year 2019 for earmarked funds totaling $1 million from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts via the Department of Conservation and Recreation. Need a motion to adopt by Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Kennedy. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Present.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
8 yeas.
Okay. Madam Manager?
Just quickly, I know the vote mentions several courts, including shed for pickleball. There will also be at least 2 other pickleball courts. I think McPherson is one and Father McGuire, but we're working on having them in more than one section of the city, so just so the council's aware.
Do you know
Thank
what,
Council Leahy?
you know when they might be done? Any idea?
All right, by the beginning of the season, so I think by June, beginning of June.
All right, I did have a deadline of May 1st, but somebody was coming back to the city May 1st, but maybe June 1st.
I think it's more like June, but we can double check.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay,
I
thank
think
you.
it's someone who's anonymous.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, all set? All right, thank you. Next, 6.3, vote to authorize manager execute an easement to Mass Electric to access parcel A off the YMCA Drive. Waive the full reading, second reading by title. Authorize the city manager to execute an easement from the city of Lowell to the Massachusetts Electric Company for the perpetual right and easement to reconstruct, install, repair, replace, maintain, operate, use, inspect, and patrol for the transmission and distribution of high and low voltage electric energy and for transmissions of intelligence by any means, whether now existing or hereafter, devise those electric utilities, crossings, and or occupations existing as of date of this grant of easement over the undercross and upon a parcel of land situated herein defined is on the southerly side of the YMCA Drive in said Lowell. I'm through for the evening. Okay. I need a motion to adopt by Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Milonazo. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
Okay. Next, 6.4, vote authorize the manager execute a license agreement, Simply Dental of Lowell, PLC, 155 Market Street, overhanging side. Waive the full reading, second reading by title. Authorize the city manager to enter in a license agreement with Simply Dental of Lowell to encroach upon the city of Lowell property at 155 Market Street, Lowell, Massachusetts. I need a motion to adopt by Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Noon.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank
Discussion.
you. In light of full disclosure, I have a granddaughter that works for that dentist over there.
Okay, thank you. So, roll call?
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
Mayor Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Cirillo.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Counsel Kennedy.
Yes.
Counsel Leahy.
Yes.
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Milonazo.
Yes.
That's 9 yeas.
I just need a motion to accept the report of the subcommittee as a report of progress.
So moved.
Councilor Cirillo, second by Councilor Conway. Next, we have petitions. Miscellaneous Renaissance on the River, request parking along Riverwalk, waived by exclusive for residents. I need a motion to refer to the Law Department for a report and recommendation by Councilor Elliott, second by Councilor Noon. Thank you. Next, Miriam Andrade, requests installation of handicap parking sign at 42 Union Street. I need a motion to refer to the transportation engineer for a report recommendation. Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Mercia. Next, National Grid, request replacement of existing gas main from 474 to 556 Douglas Road. I need a motion to refer to a public hearing on April 9th, 2019 at 7 p.m.
So moved.
By Councilor Kennedy, second by Councilor Leahy. Councilor Leahy, do you have a question?
Yes, through you to the manager. Could you also find out the few intersections with a lot of orange markings, like Douglas Road and Roger Street and then
With what markings, Councilor?
orange?
Oh, orange markings.
Yeah, and a lot of other intersections throughout the city.
Okay.
I don't know if it's all gas work or whatever. Thank you.
I don't know, are you,
Yeah, the orange markings would be phone, telecommunications, DigSafe.
Okay.
Douglas Road is one of our projects. I mean, it could be any contractor working in the city when they call DigSafe.
Oh, all right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next, National Grid requests replacement of existing gas main with new plastic pipes along Greendale Avenue to service existing customers. I need a motion to refer to a public hearing on April 9th, 2019 at 7 PM. Need a motion by Councilor Milonazo, second by Councilor Mercia. Any questions? Thank you. Next, National Grid requests installation of underground electric conduit of lighting on the Aiken Street Bridge. I need a motion to refer to a public hearing on April 9th, 2019 at 7 PM. By Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Mercia. Any discussion? Thank you. Next, we're at City Council motions. First motion by Councilor Conway, request City Manager meet with the appropriate departments to develop a monetary employee incentive program, which objective is to achieve efficiencies in city operations by giving employees an opportunity for incentives and to contribute their ideas that could result in measurable cost savings, increase efficiency, and increase revenues to the city.
Second.
Second by Councilor
Great
Leahy.
motion.
Councilor Conway.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry for the lengthy motion, but I wanted to make sure I included everything. I think it's important that we explore ways to raise revenue. And today, as we have seen in this city and other cities and towns, we're always running into financial situations and shortfalls. So I think it's incumbent on us to take a look at different ways, creative ways, instead of always going back to the taxpayer. So a number of years ago, and if you just bear with me for a minute, and there's a reason for me bringing this up. A number of years ago, we had real issues, financial issues with the school department, and I put a motion on to create a grant writer, which wasn't unusual, but a grant writer that would be financed strictly by the business community for the purpose of the school department, which obviously was very unusual. It kind of stayed dormant for about 4 years. Went through a couple superintendents, and it didn't really go anywhere. And I asked one of the superintendents if I could bring some people to the table and examine it and see if it had any legs. So I've asked, at that time I asked George Duncan and Kendall Wallace and Brian Martin to come to the table. And we discussed it. They liked the idea. They went out and raised a tremendous amount of money in a short period of time. And at that time, we also brought in Senator Eileen Donahue, too, for some legal advice on how to go forward, because the problem, there really wasn't a template for this. So the one thing that I emphasized to that group was the fact that I really wanted them to hire this individual and not put it into the school department and have them run it. And that's exactly what they did do. And it became a very successful program in that first year when they hired someone, Susan Lynn, I believe her name was. She raised, let me just back up for a second. The school department was always great in finding federal and state funds. But what I wanted to do was to find a person that would go after foundation money and corporate money. And they found a person to do that. And within that year, they raised, this individual raised over $4.5 million, which I thought was absolutely incredible. So that's why it brings me to something like this motion here. And I think that the objective, as we've said in this motion, which was just read by the mayor, the objective of the program is to achieve efficiencies in the city operations by providing the employees the opportunity to give their ideas and also share in some form of a profit. So I did a little bit of research, and I found that is it possible? Could it happen? And I found a city in Southern California, and the city had somewhere around 50,000 residents. and they were running into financial problems. And the name of the city was Rancho Palos Verdes. And the council at that time challenged the employees to come up with $150,000 in new revenue or cost-saving suggestions with a bait, and I don't know how they came up with the monies, but with a bait of $81,100. Well, they did make that goal, and the city council then went back to the table and put another $52,000 in, and the goal was the city council in that city, they wanted the savings to be $250,000. And actually what happened, their savings came up to $553,729. So when I took a look at it, I thought it was an extremely creative way to get ideas from the employees, make them certainly part of the solution, and also share in some of the, should we say, the savings. This, as we know, is done constantly in the business world because they are concerned with that bottom line, and the bottom line is to make money. So that's why I'm putting this motion on, to ask the city manager and a team if they could sit down, get a report on this to see about the feasibility and how it might be done. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All right, thank you. Next, we have by Councilor Cirillo. Request city manager to direct the proper department install 2 additional signs indicating area under video surveillance on poles at the reservoirs of Richard Street and Monroe Street and across from 74 Richard Street. I need a second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Cirillo.
Yes, this motion comes at the request of a resident who lives around in the reservoir area, and they're still seeing a lot of illicit behavior. So I am requesting 2 extra signs in those locations. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion? Next by Councilor Cirillo, request city manager provide city council with citywide spring cleaning schedule. Need a second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Cirillo.
Yes, I was at one of the neighborhood meetings, and they were talking about what they were where they wanted to clean an area, one of the parks, and so I thought, well, we should probably work with them as far as getting our schedule out there so that they can schedule their cleanups along with ours. So I think that would be wonderful.
Councilor Leahy.
Thank you. Through you, the manager. Are we, do you think we're taking advantage of the help from the Middlesex Sheriff's Department? Can we get, like some of the park benches, you can't paint them on the weekends, you can't paint them during the summer, so some of the cleanups during the parks during the day and the painting of the benches when there's nobody really there during the week, and then some of the roadways, and I mean, First Street, we've been trying to clean that for 20 years and we never seem to get anybody up there.
Through you to the council, I've spoken to the sheriff recently, and we're going to get together and talk about programs that he's doing, and I will bring that up as well and talk to him about, what can be done with his programming and see if there's an opportunity to take advantage of it.
Okay.
So I'll follow up with the sheriff.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you. Next by Councilor Cirillo, request city manager provide city council with citywide spring tree planting schedule. I need a second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Cirillo.
Hi, yes, thank you. I know that during the winter we might have lost some trees, and just to have a tree planting schedule posted for the city so that everyone can see that we are replacing the trees that are dead in the city, and I think that would be a good thing. Thank you.
By Councilor Cirillo.
No,
I'm sorry. Councilor Mercer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor.
Some time ago, I know many years ago, we had a campaign that said 2,000 for 2,000. It was 2,000 trees for the year 2000. And we had Jane Calvin, who was very active in having that program facilitated. Let me ask you if we still have a wherewithal whereby, I know at one of the cemeteries, we had a special area set up where saplings were planted and grown, and then we would take them and plant them around the city, nice flowering trees. We still have any of that going on?
Jane's still doing a lot of good work in that area.
Jane, yeah, she does, but
Madam Manager?
Yeah, I spoke with Commissioner Snow the other day about this issue. We are still working with Jane Calvin. In fact, it's through Jane Calvin that we get most of the trees that, and what's happened is that the city will replace trees, but there isn't a schedule per se. I mean, obviously, that may change. But Jane Calvin is not
She's
only
still
cooperating,
involved.
but absolutely.
Okay,
and
good.
what I was told is that's the source of most of the trees that we get. We do buy trees too, but she's been a great
so if we have a
help.
tree that is diseased and over the winter it has died and we replace that tree, do we not try to do that?
That's the plan. We
Okay.
replace them, but we'll get you more.
Because I think we should, really.
And so this might be a good time. I did sign the papers for the new Deputy Superintendent of Parks, Shannon Cohen. I know I notified the council last week, but he will be starting on April 1st. And so I think this will also give the Commissioner Snow an opportunity, working with the new Superintendent of Parks,
Sure.
to come up with some plans as we move, once he gets his feet on the ground.
Sure, thank you.
Some
Thank
plans
you.
going forward.
Councilman Milonazo?
Thank you. I think my question has been answered by bringing Jane Galvin's name into it, because I know that DCR is looking for communities to donate to trees. I think we got a couple hundred trees last year to be used and planted to Revere Housing Authority properties, and DCR came in and planted them all. It was a couple of hundred. And they actually provided us with water bags as long as our maintenance crew watered them every other day. So I know DCR, working with Jane, would certainly be able to come up with trees in order to replace the ones that have either died or been hit or whatever. So it's a good motion. Thank you.
Councilor Howie?
The program is called Greening the Gateway Cities, exactly what Councilman Milonazo, and they would love to come out and plant trees.
Okay. Further discussion? Thank you. Next, by Councilor Cirillo, request city manager reestablish the collective of city officials meeting with the neighborhoods presidents to walk the neighborhoods to identify areas that need restoration to revive the neighborhood integrity and vitality. Second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Cirillo?
Hi, yes. I had heard about this from the Back Central Neighborhood Group. And I guess that this hadn't happened in the last 3 years, but they raved about it, about the city, a collective of the city going out and walking the neighborhoods to have the presidents show the city council and the police and the fire and the inspectional services group where the neighborhoods needed help and et cetera. And I just thought, what happened to this program? And because I don't know why it went by the wayside, but I think it's a really positive thing to have us out there in the neighborhoods on the ground, walking around, and I think that would say a lot to the residents also. So I put it on, and I'm hopeful that we can reestablish this. Thank you.
Councilor Mercy, then Councilor Leahy.
If you're riding in a car through the city, you don't really see it the way that you would unless you walk to neighborhoods, and we've done that many years with different neighborhood groups. It's very, very effective, but it didn't take a scientist to go down Broadway Street and see the corner of Fletcher and Broadway Street and the fencing that used to be a secondhand store torn down. There's enough paper there to supply this city hall for a year. It's unbelievable, the trash that is there. There's a lot of eyesores in the city, and only by walking around and taking your time do you know where these are. I have a motion for next week, and Councilor Leahy talked about it a little. I didn't want to get into it, but gateways into the city, and there's like hills and people are throwing trash over. I'll talk about this next week. But these are things that we have to establish a policy whereby we're gonna clean that up. And if you need the sheriff's office to get the inmates down there, we can certainly do it, but we have to clear it with the unions first. It's a touchy situation whereby we'd love to do that, but I don't wanna insult or get anybody riled up. But there's a lot of areas in this city that needs attention. You don't know it the way that if you walk by or just drive by very slowly, you see it. We have to address these issues because this is turning into a dirty city, and I don't want to have that, reputation. This is a wonderful city, but it's only as good as the people take care of it, and a lot of areas are not being taken care of, and I'm sorry to say this, but it's true, and so that's a good thing, to get out in the neighborhood and walk around. Maybe the neighborhood groups can make a list of areas that need to be addressed, and we can come up with some sort of a plan whereby we get the sheriff's office and neighborhood groups to address it. We'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Councilor Leahy?
Thank you. I think, a few years ago when Manager Murphy got here, and maybe John Cox did it too, but, yeah, they met and they walked a few neighborhoods and see what was going on. But, I mean, the way I feel about this too is, that's why you have 9 city councils, and we're at the neighborhood meetings. We're supposed to be out in the city, and this, I feel like this falls on me. This is part of my job, to be out there. And then with my motion at the end of the night, this falls on restructuring the DPW and the Parks Department. Like Councilor Mercy was saying, litter is a problem, even across the state. You drive down 495 and certain sections are a mess. This is a statewide problem that needs to be addressed again. Figure out a way to pick up the litter, but get people out there to do it. So, I like the motion, but I think this is part of our job. That's, why we're out in the neighborhoods.
Councilor Kennedy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It probably is the city councilor's job, but, or one of the city councilor's jobs, but I do think that, I think people in the neighborhood like it if they see the police chief and the fire chief and, DPW and those people that, they can only hope to get on the phone if they have a problem, to have them right there, to be looking at what's in the neighborhood and have to give a response to them right away. I think people have great appreciation for that, so I think it's a good, I think it's a really good thing to do, and it's a good way for City Hall to reach out into the neighborhoods on a regular basis. And also with regards to cleaning up the neighborhoods, we have in the past, a few years ago, there were religious groups that came in and helped for the day with an army of people. So that if there was a big project somewhere, they would come in and take care of that project. And I think that that's also something that, and they look for that. They consider that to be missionary work. So it would be good to, and I think the mayor's office is able to get in touch with them, and we should do that again this year and see if Lowell can be on their list. Thank you.
Madam Manager, that's a good point.
Just quickly, we will get you a report on this. We have heard from, I think we're talking about the same group, as well as neighborhood groups that are scheduling their cleanups. We are coordinating, Council Mercy is correct, this has to be worked through the union, and so we're working with the representation of the union on these volunteer projects. So if anyone knows of a project or people who want to volunteer, which is great, we welcome it, we support it, but we do also want to follow proper channels with the union. So let me know if, or pass it on for them to contact my office. I remember, many years ago when Brian Martin was the manager and he started the city manager's impact team, neighborhood impact team, and went through, which is very similar, and it's been done over the years. Going into a neighborhood with all the key departments, police, fire, inspectional services, parks, DPW, to look with the neighborhood. I think many did it once or twice a year, depending on the extent of the impact you were trying to achieve. So we'll come back with some report, with a report on this in terms of how to address this.
All set? Thank you. Next, is a motion by Councilor Mercia, require city manager place Madonna Circle on the list of streets needed to be addressed due to truck turnaround traffic caused by the company repairing the Broadway Street Bridge. I need a second by Councilor Kennedy. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did get a request from a neighbor that lives on that particular street that feels forgotten with the fact that that bridge on Broadway, when it was being repaired, and it took many, many months, it's at that point where Madonna Circle is the street before the bridge, and the Father Francis Gatehouse is after the bridge. So right there on Madonna Circle, they were using that street to turn around and park trucks, and it left it in a little bit of a disarray. If we could have someone from the street department take a ride over there and see what needs to be done, because it's really not in good shape after that. They'd like some type of addressing of that area. Thank you.
Okay. Final motion by Councilor Leahy, requires city manager update city council regarding reorganization of the DPW and the Parks Department. Second by Councilor Mercia. Councilor
Thank you. Through you, the manager. So if we could get an update, now that we have a new parks superintendent and Mr. Snow's on board, you know, where are we, at what stage, and what's the reorganization looking like? And in conjunction with the report on cost savings for the end of the year, you know, we just want to be, we've talked about it all year, we want to be effective, we want to be efficient. I'm working over by the Moody School, and I asked about the fence there, and there's no reason that the fence at the Moody should be broken for over a year. I mean, we must have a fence company, right, that goes and does repairs. It's a pretty bad break. There's a pipe sticking out, they put a cone on it, and I thought maybe it was like that for 3 or 4 months. They're telling me it's been like that for a year. So, I mean, you know, this is just, and I know we've had change up at the top, and but again, it's like, why? I thought if we have a broken fence at a school, it goes right in, it gets repaired, and then we figure out how to pay for it later, because it's a danger. So, I mean,
We'll
these are the
look
things we
into
gotta
that.
do, you know?
We'll see. I mean, obviously, usually they go into the report, and there's a work order, but we'll check into
I
why
called the
that's-
school, and they said they've been putting in a request for a year, and I thought, well,
Right.
doesn't make us look good again, so. But these are things we need to crack down on with, you know, with this reorganization, so, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you. This is a good motion. I hope it gets tied back to the Collins report, because obviously we have a lot of work to do there, as well as update our preventive maintenance. And as Councilor Leahy said, it just seems to take an awful long time. I have been calling Rick Underwood because he stood at that podium and said, call me if you have a problem. And the problem does get corrected, but we really shouldn't have to, in my opinion, we really shouldn't have to call. They really should be doing their job. And for some reason, they're not. And we get blamed as elected officials when people who are in these positions, and I know there's been some changes at the top that Councilor Leahy just mentioned, but unfortunately, it looks like they weren't doing their job because they set the tone for this is okay, and it's not okay. So again, I look forward to the reorganization plan, but we just have to make sure that people are doing their job. There's no reason that fence should be broken for a year and have calls going into DPW or to whomever and have it not be fixed.
Right.
But
Couldn't agree more. And, you know, Commissioner Snow obviously started some weeks ago when the superintendent of parks starts next week and we get the streets straightened out and filled. I think he's waiting for his team to be in place to, you know, kind of flush out the idea of where the reorganization should happen.
do we have GPS on our vehicles?
Some of them, but not
We
those
don't?
vehicles.
Well, okay. So something to think about in the future. I know it's probably something that have to be
No, we have them
bargained.
on police vehicles. We
Yeah,
don't
well, it's
have-
something that have to be bargained, but I think that we should look at putting GPS on all our municipal vehicles, DPW, park, everything.
That's it. Thank you. Announcements. Any announcements? Announcement? Move to adjourn, second by Councilor Noon. Thank you.
Do they work on, do the policemen?